Let us put our hands together and welcome Dr. Filtzer. Good evening to you. You're in the US, and
Evening.
I think most of us in Asia. Good evening. Okay, I'm going to pin you so everyone can see you. Welcome, welcome. I'm excited. I don't know about you. I'm so excited.
Well, I'm happy that you are. I have to say, I am as well. It's kind of exciting to think that today is tomorrow where I am. So it's kind of cool.
Yeah, yeah. I think all of us have seen many of your YouTube videos. We enjoy all the videos because it sheds so much light to what we have been drinking, what we are doing, and it really boosts our confidence and raise our conviction in sharing this amazing water with everyone. But I think everyone is curious also. How did you first come across Kangen water? Did somebody introduce you? How it started?
Well, it's very, very interesting. I operated on a man in Arizona who surprisingly was a classmate of mine in college. We didn't know each other, but we were the same year in college and graduated at the same time. And I fixed his aortic aneurysm, which is kind of a big operation. And he was from Las Vegas, and I wanted him around to make sure that all was well. So I told him to stay a week in Bullhead City in Arizona. And he had no place to stay, and I was living alone in this big house of mine. So I said, well, come and stay with me. He produced this funny looking machine I had never seen before. And he said, Doc, do you mind if I hook this up to your sink? I said, knock yourself out. What is it? Well, it's a very special water and it's good for everything and what have you. And I said, well, fine. I'm not much of a water drinker, but there we go. So I tried it. And I have to tell you, it was an instant like. I liked the way it tasted. I also liked the way it didn't make you feel all full and what have you. And I really enjoyed the taste of that water. And Arizona, where I live, has terrible water. We have very hard water. We have all kinds of issues with it. So I bought a machine from him. And the rest is kind of history. I've been hooked on it ever since. And I met a number of people. I met Chuck Thomas, I met Fred Brown, and so on. And I got more and more interested in it. And they said, would you do a testimonial? Testimonials were big in 2008. That's exactly when that was. And so I made this video. It took 15 minutes to make the video. I never thought much of anything else. Next thing I know, they asked me if I would be medical advisor to Kangen because I liked it, you see. And so that's what happened. And I became a medical advisor and I gave talks on the efficacy of the water and so on. But what struck me was the fact that there was so much what I have to call unscientific knowledge. In other words, the water did this, the water did that. But when I ask what is the mechanism? For example, how does it become an antioxidant? How do you know that this water, when you drink it, is transformed into something different within your body? The fact that you put a probe in a test tube and you measure a pH or an ORP doesn't mean at all that it's going to do anything inside your human body. And I took me, well, 7 or 8 years to get an appointment with Mr. Oshiro. And I said, sir, you need to do some studies to verify, to actually prove that when you say this water is an antioxidant, it doesn't make a damn bit of difference if you can't prove it that it is an antioxidant in your body, first of all, uh, the regulatory agencies in this country and in Malaysia and in Singapore and in a number of other, because all of this has happened elsewhere, these regulatory agencies demand proof. The Federal Trade Commission here demands that when you say, this water is going to be an antioxidant, that you can prove it. And we couldn't. We couldn't prove it. So obviously, money is always a big consideration. So I suggested that we start out testing the water in human tissue culture. And the reason for that is money. Tissue cultures you can buy. Tissue cultures can be incubated with the water. Tissue cultures respond like all other cells do. And these are human strains. And so we were able to do the first study that showed that in red cells deprived of antioxidants, this becomes a powerful antioxidant. And we could actually show that. And we compared it to local tap water in the community where the tests were run. And there's no question about it. Kangen water differentiates itself in tissue culture as being a more potent antioxidant than tap water. That was number one. And then number two, anti-inflammatory. All this talk about how people have less back pain, how people have arthritis improve, and this and the other thing. Again, no proof. Well, we used neutrophils. Those are white blood cells that are part of our immune response. And these white cells showed indeed that this water is a potent, measurable, direct anti-inflammatory agent. And as a bonus, which we had not actually intended, we found there was a new test that could measure mitochondrial activity. Now, a mitochondria is called an organelle that is within a cell. It's like an organ inside a cell. And this is our machine. This is our energy producing organelle. It converts glucose and other things into ATP, which is energy. And what we did, we incubated this water with the mitochondria and found a substantial upregulation of the activity of the engine. Figure it, your normal engine runs at 500 RPM. Well, with this water, it cranks up to 1500 RPM. So it produces more energy by making these mitochondria work harder. Now, you have to have a substrate. You have to have glucose. You have to have amino acids. But there you go. And those were the three things that we first studied and showed. And that was for short money, relatively, $10,000 to $15,000, not a gigantic expense. But now we wanted to see, what does it do in a walking, talking, living human being? Can we show that there is that same antioxidant effect, that same anti-inflammatory effect, etc.? So we studied 13 healthy volunteers in a college town in Oregon. So they were readily available, and they were going to be studied after undergoing stress, an exercise stress study. In other words, we wanted to exercise these young people. We wanted to stress them, and we wanted to see if the water acted differently under stress than ordinary tap water. It was actually kind of an easy study in a way, because the oldest person, I think, was 28, college students. We put a machine in their room. And the first study included all the participants, and they were stressed in a standard garden variety exercise program. They had their blood drawn every 15 minutes. They had all kinds of physiologic measurements made. They had their plasma, their serum, and all that saved for future study. And this test lasted about 40 minutes. They would do push-ups, sit-ups, so on and so forth. Lactic acid was measured, and they were their own control. What they would do is drink Kangen water for 2 weeks, every day, about 2 to 3 liters, and then we would run the testing and run the stress test. Then they would go away for a month and repeat the same thing with ordinary tap water, non-Kangen water. And when we analyzed the data, it was crystal clear that the exercise related stress was handled much, much better by the Kangen group. Their red blood cell count went up. And this is very important if you think about athletes, or particularly runners. You know, I'm from Boston and we have the marathon, and every damn year the Kenyans win it. Why? Because the Kenyans live at 10,000 feet in Kenya. They're skinny as a rail. They're 6.5 feet tall, and they train way up in there. And when they come down to sea level in Boston, they've got such a huge advantage of red cell mass alone. Not that they're not good athletes to begin with, but you understand that why they win. And this is what was happening with athletes drinking Kangen water. Red cell count went up. In addition, there were markers for inflammation, white blood cell count, that went down. They had less inflammation. Consequently, they reported less pain. Consequently, they reported less fatigue. Consequently, they reported quicker recovery from all of this stressful situation. Also, we did what we call psychometric tests. And these are designed by the American Psychiatric Association. They're questionnaires, but they're valuable, and they are, in fact, helpful. What happens is the people are asked how they feel, and there's a score. It's like, you know, a frown and then a smile, that kind of thing. But overall, it takes quite a bit to fill out one of these tests. The people who drank the Kangen water got over the joke much more quickly. Their vigor returned more quickly. 5 days later, they didn't even know they had the test. They didn't have any aches and pains and so on, as compared to the non-Kangen water. And then we were left with this huge amount, 60 vials per person, of serum and plasma in the deep freezer, not analyzed because that's very expensive. So that brings us up to the first book, which I think you have. I reported that for people to understand it and to be able to say to their prospective clients or their prospective buyers, listen, this is real. This is not phony. These studies were done and they're scientifically solid. And they were done in an NIH and federal government approved laboratory with a stellar reputation. And then the next step, and that's where we had issues, and I'm not going to get into them, it's not worth it, financing. The company didn't want to spend, because those tests are very expensive to do all the analysis. And it was an analysis for tissue factors and cellular factors that show inflammation, non-inflammation, and other things. And they're called cytokines. And we analyzed these cytokines. We analyzed a total of 32 cytokines, but only about 14 of them reacted in any shape or form to the water, which is understandable. Not every cytokine reacts to water. Specific ones do. And the bottom line is as follows. There was a marked increase in anti-inflammatory cytokines. What that means, inflammation was decreased. Anti-inflammation was substantially reduced, again, when compared to the regular water. In addition, we also found that cytokines that ordinarily produce inflammation, their number was reduced. So anti is up, and inflammatory is down, and that's profound. But then the greatest surprise was there's an enzyme made by our body. It's made by
I think you are, one moment here. I think, hold on. Let me, can, wait.
I found the secret. Okay. Did you
Oh,
see?
yay!
Okay.
Welcome back to a
So sorry.
part
So sorry. So
two.
anyway, the thing I believe I was saying that we found a surprise in that the human body makes the most powerful antioxidant known to man. It's called superoxide dismutase. This is an enzyme produced in the liver that is extremely powerful in taking reactive oxygen species or free radicals and containing them, particularly things like in the lining of our arteries and our intestines. This is where, for example, they counter atherosclerosis, they counter rheumatoid arthritis, they counter these, and this is a very powerful enzyme. And we found that this enzyme is 2.5 to 3 times increased over baseline enzymes in relationship to regular water. And that is huge. That is so huge that I think it's really important that we go on and follow this up with appropriate studies. And I've suggested that so far between the pandemic and everything, I'm not getting very far, but I'm going to keep plugging that because number one, we ought to be able to study patients very easily who have arthritis. I mean, arthritis is so common, particularly in the Western Hemisphere. I mean, rheumatoid arthritis and degenerative arthritis is exceedingly common. And we could study that and we could show, and I'm convinced that we would be able to show that these folks that really take the Kangen water drinking seriously will benefit from the point of view of having less joint pain, less inflammation, less downtime, and a better sense of well-being. There are also a number of things that have been suggested in the literature in relationship to electrolyzed reduced water or ionized water. One of them is longevity. Now, there's all kinds of funky literature out there about the Hunza people who live forever. They don't. They go by a lunar calendar. So when they're 130 years old, they're only 70. But that's neither here nor there. That has been around the literature for centuries. And it's because they drink glacial water, and glacial water actually is ionized because of the piezoelectric currents that are produced by glaciers. But the point is, we can measure whether or not something affects aging by studying two things. One is the telomeres, and the other one is the primary response of primordial cells, stem cells specifically. Even when you're 80, which I'm damn near, your stem cells response dictates how long you're going to live. If at the age of 80, you don't have much of a stem cell response, you can say sayonara, or Wiedersehen, goodbye. You're going to die soon. But if it's a good healthy response, you're not. And these are all things we can measure as hard data. Imagine showing that a group of people who drink Kangen water for a year can show telomere lengthening or a better, and those things, and they're easily to study. I mean, they're expensive. On the other hand, the company makes a pretty good buck. So I'm hoping to encourage them. And I've presented these suggestions to Japan. This March, I actually personally went and met with Mr. Oshiro. And I'm confident that as soon as this pandemic sort of gets under control, We'll be doing more of these studies. And if it's not me, someone else, but it really should be done. Because if you do research to validate your product, you're one step ahead of the competition.
Yes.
I can tell you, it's going to be in the book. It's just a short paragraph. But in 1936, Mercedes-Benz built a diesel engine. Now, diesel engines are actually older than regular engines, but they built this diesel engine, four-cylinder engine. That same engine is still alive and well today. Why? Every time they turned around, they tried to make it better. And they made it so good that it is the most common diesel engine powering trucks in the world. No competition. So I guess I'm saying we must continue to do research. And as long as I'm around, I would like to be a part of that. And I'd like to tell you guys about it. So there.
Wow, wow. Thank you so much, goodness. You will be around because you have Kangen water. Yes, you're going 80, but wow, we look forward to more of your research and your good work coming up.